Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Talking Insights, the podcast that brings you the trends and the new ideas of the insights community. For this special series, we're celebrating the projects that demonstrated excellence and impact in the insights industry through the Esomar Awards. They're all winners of these awards that happen throughout the Esomar Congress. And today I'm speaking with Jean-Yves Laffon, the general manager of Appinio. Now, the team won the Research Impact Award with a very interesting project on food transparency and food labeling and how the brands that you see in the supermarkets need to be more transparent on what they have on the labels. They did a very interesting study on what the consumers are looking for and what sometimes is missing on the labels and how your brand can improve with being more transparent. It's a very interesting conversation and a very interesting study. So without further ado, Jean-Yves, congrats on the award again and welcome to the show. Jean-Yves, welcome to the Talking Insights podcast. And I got to start by saying big congratulations on the award that you just won on the Esomar Awards. There you go. The Research Impact Awards. And I know that you won this award with a project on like food labeling and you searched a bit of the labels on the foods. I want to know more about it. And I want to start by asking, like, what sparked this project? Like, what drove you to look into labels of the products? Because it's something that's, I don't usually look into it when I go to the supermarket, but what was the spark there?
No, of course. First of all, thank you for having me, Antonio. Very happy to be here and to be able to talk about this impactful project. And maybe starting with Appinio. So we're a market research player, and we have always been very committed in having a positive impact, being with our employees, our customers, but also generally speaking in the societies. We are B Corp, for example, and do a lot of things in that direction. One of the things that we also do is looking at players that drive positive change and or leading initiatives in that sense. And that's how we came across our partner on that project, who is it's called Am Verité, and it's a collective of more than 60 brands in the food industry that are basically lobbying for more transparency. And they have three main pillars. They focus on the nutritional aspect of food, the impact on the environment, and also the origin of the product. Basically, it's really helping consumers to answer three key questions, which is, what am I eating? How is it produced or done? And where is it coming from? So these are fair questions that a lot of consumers, even though you might not look at the label and stuff, I think every consumer is more and more with how our society or societies are evolving. Those questions are being asked more and more by consumers. So that's how it started, and we got in touch, and they wanted to first test the third pillar, which was the origin of the ingredients, because back in 2023, there was nothing very standardized there. And they had this intuition that it was a very important aspect for consumers. Nutrition is always something that, you can see, environmental impact. There was also some labeling out there, but the origin, that was not much. So we did a first study, and I think that was the first part of that project. It was in two stages, essentially. The first stage was really focusing on that origin, and we got amazing results. Like, 86% of the French consumers really wanted to have the origin of the ingredients accessible when they are purchasing their products. And we had a press conference, and then it went all the way up to the government that had a press release with that number. So it was a good case for like market research having an impact. A lot of journalists, consumer associations also joined, and the government organized a roundtable within 2 months. Like, it's crazy when the politics are involved, how things can move fast,
Yeah.
They invited food brands, advertisers, all the retailers in France, consumer associations around the table, and said, we need to do something about this. And they launched what was called the Origin Info Initiative in France, which was essentially a new labeling opportunity for brands with a new logo and stuff, so that they can actually display the origins of the ingredients on the products. Of course, it's not mandatory, but that was the start. And, to this day, there's thousands of brands using it, like brands like Carrefour that decided that it will be on all their private labels products. So that was the first stage. And the second stage was like, okay, now that we have tested that and we know origin is important, there are other aspects that are also very important for clients. I can maybe also here share my screen, because we have some results.
Yeah, for those ones that are viewing on YouTube, they can also have a little graphic, and we can follow through the graphic. But the ones that are just listening, we'll try to explain the best we can.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it will be understandable, of course, but it's always sometimes easy with with some visual support. Um, but yeah, the the second topic they really wanted to tackle with that project was, there's a big distortion and in terms of the transparency in food. Nowadays, brands show whatever they want. They of course put forward what is beneficial to them, and the consumers, they have no idea. They don't know what they don't know, so they can only take for granted what's on the pack. And what we know is, based on those studies, that what truly drives the consumers' choice when it comes to food is, beyond price and taste, that are the top two criteria, and that we cannot really influence. The brands are owning that part. The top three after that are the nutritional quality, the ingredients provenance, so the origin, and then their environmental impact. That's also why the collective en vérité is focusing on those three pillars. And so, of course, we were like, okay, we need to focus on that. And the idea of that new labeling was to combine transparency on those three aspects. But the reason also, this topic really resonates, is that there is a clear lack of trust in food offering for more than 50% of the consumers. More and more you hear about, those lobbying and stuff. And so that's also one of the learning of the study, is that there is a lack of trust. Less than 50% of the consumers found that, the offering right now is really aligned with the challenges that we face, be it like on the health level or on the environmental level. I mean, we have a surge in diseases and obesity, cancers and stuff. So it's a big focus for also consumers and worry. And another striking number was that less than half of the people are able to say easily if a product is healthy for them or not. So you have this issue that there is no transparency now. There's a marketing around the packaging and the product. So sometimes you have a French flag for a product that is actually coming from Latin America, just manufactured in France. So it's very misleading for consumers, and that's a problem, of course.
Yeah, I find that transparency very interesting because, as you were saying, when you go to the supermarket, you pick up a bunch of products that you think that are healthy or they're going to be, you know, quote unquote good for you, and then you have to understand that sometimes these are just, we're all working in marketing. It's connected to marketing, so these big words that they kind of make you look the other way, and eventually the product is not that healthy for you. I want to go back to the whole study, because you created this study on the labeling.
Mm-hmm.
How did you design the study, and because you have to make sure that study kind of measures the label effects on the behavior of the consumers. How did you can you go through like a little bit of how did you went through the study?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. And I mean, maybe starting with, showing you how this labeling look like for the ones that have the screen available. Essentially, the idea was to have a harmonized, comprehensive label, but that combines existing indicators. The idea is to combine three indicators, or at least three types of indicators. The first one is about origin of the product, as we said. That's a key aspect. And here, that's the origin info initiative I was telling you about from 2023-4 that has been launched. So you see, where the products come from, which country. You also see in which country the product is manufactured. The second indicator is the Nutri-Score, which is very common and in a lot of Western societies, in a lot of markets is present. It's very successful. It's actually number one. Is the label that we tested, because we tested a lot of labels also in that study to understand what consumers really take into consideration when purchasing products, and that's the number one, and that addresses the nutritional quality aspect. And the third aspect is the environmental impact. And here we had two indicators involved in the study. The first one is the Planet Score, which is also pretty popular. Exists in a dozen of markets, mostly Europe, but now more and more so in Middle East and other continents, which gives you a quite precise indication. It's A to E, a little bit like the Nutri-Score. It's a score from A to E, A being the best, E the worst. And it focuses on, is there pesticides in the product, the impact on biodiversity, on the climate. If we're talking about meat, for example, is that sustainable farming? So that's the Planet Score. And then there was another indicator here called the environmental impact, which is something the French government released. And the goal here is to give this a score, and the higher the score, the higher the impact. And this is a score that is available across categories. So it's not only food specific. You can have it for pieces of clothing and stuff. And so it's kind of complementary. It's more general, high level, but allow you to compare products from a category to another. And so that was the how the harmonized comprehensive label looked like, and the purpose that it had. And the results were super positive on that concept test. So to get back to your question on the methods, we first had a sort of UNA study, understanding what consumers think and what they use in terms of labels, and presenting that concepts, and they really liked it. So they say it's clearer. For 70% of them, it makes the choice much easier. And even more than half said that, it has basically all the information that they need to make informed decisions. So that was the first part. And then the second part, we wanted to have something that is very situational, that avoids the typical risk of bias when it comes to the declarative online studies. And so we had this design here that I'm showing on the screen, but I will try to be as detailed as possible when I explain it. So it was a 2 phases approach. The first phase was to say, okay, we do a study on, we took 3 different categories of products to make sure that it was not, only specific to categories. The 3 categories were chocolate spreads, bolognese sauce, and vegetable steaks. Categories, what we did is we took 4 to 5 brands and products, made sure to take, from the private label that was really affordable to like national brands and then more premium brands. Consumers were seeing the packaging on each of those products and also the price attached to it, price of the product plus price per kilo, to have a really exhaustive information here. And we were measuring the purchase intent. So, what was the intention of purchase for each of those products. And then, so that was phase 1. We also bulletproof that with, the brands of the collective. You see one brand here is disclosed because it's the brand from the collective en vérité. So they accepted to be fully transparent also on that study. And so they also help us to make sure the purchase intent that we had there was in line with the market share they had on the market. So that also helped to make sure there was no bias. The second stage was then to say, okay, we have 2 scenarios in the second stage. One scenario is we're going to try to replicate what's happening today. What's happening today is every brand is putting forward whatever indicator is making their product look good. So if they have a good planet score, they put the planet score. If the products come from France, they put the products from France. But, the Nutri score is maybe very bad and they don't show it. So for each of the brands, we actually put forward and show the indicator that was the most beneficial to the brand. To try to replicate that, the status quo, and measure the intention of purchase again, the purchase intent. And the second scenario was we then did the same experience, but showing for all products the 3 indicators: origin, environmental impact, and nutrition. So that was really how we could really, measure how such a label could impact really the behavior of the consumers in the store.
And how did you find the consumer behavior? What I mean is the fact that it's more transparent, the fact that it's more that I understand, like this product, it's like this and it has all this information versus this product that has all this information. How was the consumer attitude and behavior? Did it shift? Were they more inclined to the full label? Were they more inclined to not knowing anything? What was the attitude there?
Yeah. So of course, you have several aspects that come into play when you are looking at that. And of course, right now with there's a lot of focus on purchasing power. So the price is a big thing, but precisely we wanted to show and to test if price was the only factor. This kind of labeling would impact the willingness to pay and the purchase intent. What you see here on that slide is the results for that category of chocolate spreads. And so you have a quick description for the ones that see what's on the screen. So for each of the products, you see actually the label, how it looks. So how the product scores on all the 3 indicators. You also see 2 bars. The first bar is the purchase intent after you show the product and the price only, and the purchase intent after you show the product with all 3 scores for all products. And so what's interesting is that, of course, you see that the brands like the first one here, Funky Veggie, which is the brand of the collective, their product comes from France, or part of the products come from France. The Nutri score is B. It's also not processed, and the planet score is A. So it's, doing a very great job on all these aspects. from showing just the price and the product. It's also the most expensive product, of course, from the category. You see here 1990 per kilo. So the initial purchase intent was pretty low, 2.3%. It's also not like a mass market brand, so the awareness of the brand is not as big as some others. But after showing all these indicators, the origin, the impact, and the nutrition, the purchase intent has been multiplied by 19, so 43%. So of course, it's again, you're not in the store, it might be a bit less or a bit more, but it is substantial. And if you look at the other brands, you see that they pretty much all go into the other direction, because they all have a Nutri-Score that is either D or E. All of them are processed food, and some of them have a positive Planet score, but essentially, they lose from 5% to actually the market leader here, the biggest brand, go from 60% in purchase intent to 30%. So it's dividing by 2 the purchase intention based on seeing that information that, actually it's the Planet score is bad. The Nutri-Score is also very bad. And actually the products is not coming from the EU. So it confirms exactly what you were saying, is like, or what you were asking about, like having this type of information is crucial for the customers and the consumers, because they completely reorient their decision based on that. And of course, here you see that even though the price varies, especially per kilo, still the most expensive product is at less than 4 euros, and they're all around 4 euros. So that is, in the end, it's more a call on, how much quantity do I want, but it's not a barrier on the pure product price.
Right. Do you feel that for brands, my question is, when brands are marketing their products, they always try to make, what's best for my products.
Mhm.
What's, I have this and this, like you were saying with the previous labels, like I always wanted to shine the best things and kind of hides the worst. This is obvious. This is marketing 101. But do you feel that by being transparent, and the brands by being transparent and showing like, okay, we are very good at these things, not so good at these things, did that make the consumers at least understand where they were coming from, and wanted to buy more of the products or be more loyal to the brands and see the evolution of the brand? Like, let's say that brand 3 is now the Nutri-Score E, but like eventually they'll evolve the Nutri-Score, or at least make the brand evolve the Nutri-Score, make better products, make better choice when creating the products and everything. Did that happen?
Yeah, so and actually I have 2 examples for this, which is very insightful. So actually, when we released that study, at the same time, some numbers came out about products that had a Nutri-Score E, so the worst Nutri-Score you can have. And it was in the year 2024. And on that year, so the panel revealed that the panel data, the retailing panel data, revealed that the products with the E Nutri-Score were actually not growing. They were losing market share, I think, by 12%. But if you actually analyzed and made a split between the ones that showed the Nutri-Score versus the one that didn't show it, it was quite interesting, because the one that showed it were growing by a few percent, and the one that were not showing it were actually losing much more market share. So on average, the category of that product was going down, but it was mostly driven by the products that were not transparent. So it shows something amazing, which is that transparency is the most important part. Even if if you buy chocolate spreads, you could expect as a consumer that it's not super nutritious. But the fact that you see the data also gives you trust into the brand, and nowadays it's going to be more and more about that. Regarding so you see more and more brands that since the Nutri-Score is there, change it. You also see brands that have decided to remove it because the Nutri-Score is also changing over time to consider more and more things. Like, for example, here you see there's a black band around the Nutri-Score. This actually doesn't exist yet. It's a concept to show that the food is processed. But in the way the Nutri-Score is currently implemented, you cannot see that. So we explain it to the consumers here in that study. But so it's evolving, and by evolving, sometimes brands score worse and worse and decide to remove it. But then consumers make their choice in store. The good case is I don't know if you know this application, mobile app called Yuka. It's an app that has been developed by a French startup that's now really big also in the US and everywhere. You can scan basically the barcode of a product, and it gives you automatically a score out of 100. And they design a feature which is really cool, which is like when your product is in the red zone and there is like bad additives, toxic additives, you can actually click a button and it sends an email to the brand already pre-filled with like asking the brand to remove the additives because it's consumers don't want it. And they post regularly on social media the brands that have actually removed those additives following all those requests. So um, it's amazing because increasing transparency either from the brand or thanks to third-party tools like this raise awareness on the consumers that are ready also take actions and push back to the brand, which in turns drive the brands to change their strategy and improve their product quality. So I think there is a virtuous cycle to have there, and it starts with more transparency and equipping basically the consumers to be able to drive and push that change as well.
That's a great feedback for the brands, especially like when you're trying to develop a product. I think that's such a great feedback to have. I wanna ask about the labels. Do you think it's easy for a consumer to understand the labels? Is it something that it's changing? Because this project you started like 2 years ago, right? 2023. Did the labeling, as you were mentioning, the black bits around the Nutri-Score, are those implementations or are those updates on the labels something regular? And do you think it's easy for the consumer to understand what the black bit, for example, means?
Yeah, so that's actually something we tested in that study too. So in that first part, that it was more usage and attitude. We asked them about readability, understanding, and I think most of the labels are actually pretty well understood, especially the one we picked here. We made sure that they were. Um, of course, when you want to improve them and stuff, there's always the question: is if you go too far and you make it too complex. But you know. What we see is that more and more consumers are also getting interested into the topics, so also more willing to look at the information. But what is sure is that those labels are much more clear. If you think about the origin, um, there is some category of products that already had it was mandatory already to provide the origin. But what brands were doing is that if you had like a product that had several ingredients, they will tell you, hey, the beef is coming from France, but the other 9 ingredients are coming from another country, right? So and to have the answer to that, and some experts are regularly doing and raising awareness on it, you had to flip the pack, look at something that is in font 2 and see where every product ingredient is coming from, which no one is doing because you don't even know where it is, and it's just very hard to read it. So those labels, even though sometimes requires a little bit of thinking, but essentially it's very easy. What you see on the screen here is A to E with a color code. If it's green, it's good. If it's red, it's bad. Same for the planet score for the environmental impact, and for the origin, it just tells you the country. So where is the cacao coming from? Where is the hazelnuts coming from? And then it's you to take the call. If it's France, if it's EU, outside of EU, whatever you prefer. But we see more and more people also want more social justice. There is a big crisis of the agriculture in Western societies. Our farmers are demonstrating; they can barely make a living. So more and more people wants to support local production too. So I think it will always be easier for some consumers than others to read those labels, but I think they are pretty clear. And making research and studies about it is what's going to make them even more clear and user friendly.
Yeah, fantastic. That leads me to I have one more question, which is about the role of the insights industry on all of this, because this industry kind of plays an interesting role in guiding this more ethical and these more ethical decisions, not only for the consumer but also for the brands. Like, this industry could play a bigger role, do you think? Or where do you see it evolving, the role of the insights industry on these types of decisions? Do you think it's going to be evolving to more laws on the government side? Do you think the whole brands will change the way that they are starting to think already? How do you see this role of the industry?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the industry has definitely a role to play. I mean, this industry is leading innovation, supporting big brands for innovation. So I think we shouldn't be like just tools to give an A/B test results, but really, identify the blind spot and truly drive a positive transformation of the different industry of our customers. Of course, it's a multifactorial thing. So we don't decide on, we usually work for customers. They give us a brief and we have to execute the brief. So we can change the brief, but there's a lot of things we can do. And first off is, trying to build questionnaires and study designs that make sure that, we provide actionable results that can give the most transparency on what the consumers wants and thinks. That's one, but also making sure we serve also the new needs. So there's more and more needs in the CSR departments of the big companies, for example. And some agencies are even specializing now more and more into those type of market research, which is great. So that's one thing, of course, trying to influence also our clients and, steering into the right direction, offering them tools that can also shed some lights on that consumers' desire for positive change. The second aspect I would say is purely coming down to each company and agencies, and I think that's where there's a lot of improvement to do, because every market research player is a company on its own and has a full control of what they do. And so I think, Appinio, for example, was the first B Corp institute in France. I think by now there are two, but we also we've planted 150,000 trees with our panelists plant trees. We match donations of our employees at the end of the year, for example, for charities. There's a lot of things you can do as a company, and we are self-funded, and we are not at all as big as the biggest players. And so there's a lot of things to do on a company level. And if everyone is, taking those, also sharing transparently through EcoVadis and such labels, what we're doing to change. A lot of people work in agencies, then work for the brands. And this is also a virtuous circle. If everyone is putting more focus on that, we see it more and more. Procurement department in big companies have those requests that you need to be EcoVadis assessed, for example, to be working for certain brands. So there's also improvement there. The last aspect I would see is that what you can always do as well, and you have full control on that as well, is you can support, players that are driving that change. And so En Vérité is one example. You can do pro bono work. Again, we're self-funded. We don't have billions, but one study like this, you can do it on your funds and look at the impact you can have. And so everyone can do that as well, at least once a year, doing it for NGOs and helping them to provide numbers. The president of our partner, En Vérité, said that Indian market research can be a weapon of mass construction. And I think it was a very well put, statement, because if you have the right number and the right PR strategy, you can make a lot of things change. And that's the power that we have, and we should use in the right direction, of course, to make things change positively.
Absolutely. And if I may add, give the priority, because I feel like sometimes we don't give the priority to the right topics or the right things when you're developing a product, when you're working in a big company or even a small company. Sometimes things and some topics just slid to the cracks and you just forget to think about it. Or even if you start thinking about, we always think about sustainability and all of these things, but I feel like sometimes they're not top of minds, and these things should be more top of minds for the big companies. For even if you're a manager, a CEO, whatever it is, you can have a responsibility, you can make a difference. Sometimes people just forget about it, but it's important to have these studies, it's important to have these conversations so people can keep the mind on these things and keep understanding that they can make a difference and they can be important, and they are important.
100%. And I think, the role of Esomar, for example, in such institutions is also very important. So I was really happy to see that in the awards categories, there is several categories for impact specifically. And that's another way to put forward such projects that, would have probably not been known to some other brands, other CEOs or other director of insights. And so seeing all those things is also going to drive the change positively. So I think we all have roles, and giving the floor and putting such projects and initiative in the spotlight is definitely something that is valuable, I think.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that.
Jean-Yves, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations again on the award. Congratulations on the project. I think it's a very interesting project. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Antonio. It was great to talk to you, and hopefully we talk again next year.
Yeah, let's see. All right. And that's all for today, folks. Talking Insights is a production of Research World and Esomar, bringing you the stories, voices, and ideas shaping the insights community around the world. If you'd like to be featured in a future episodes, share your story, or learn more about sponsoring opportunities, send us an email at podcast@esomar.org. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And join us next week for another great conversation. See ya.